Hey, Sean, thanks for coming on the show today.
Sure. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. Of course, I've gotten to know Wastelinq over the last
hmm
several months, and it's been exciting to watch the growth and learn more about the company.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to come talk more about it and talk to your audience about what we're trying to do.
Yeah, well, and I've gotten a little bit more in the space of waste management, just
hmm
with my podcast and with my show. I've really wanted to kind of cultivate the whole matrix of the industry because I come from pipeline. I've worked in different parts of the industry, and understanding the way everything works together. And I feel like waste management, repurposing, reusing different materials. It's very interesting because it's a big part of the oil and gas space, but it's not what you would really think about. That's not one of the things that comes to mind when you think about the industry.
Yeah, I don't know that anybody grows up and says they want to be in the waste business,
Not
right?
at all,
But
but it's so fascinating because there's more to it than just waste. I mean, the way that you can repurpose and reuse a lot of it, I think it's kind of gaining a little bit more popularity.
yeah, and it's really important in my view. I mean, it's a way to be able to help take care of the environment, make sure that you can do your part, actually helping manufacturing facilities and service companies and disposal facilities manage the waste the right way, right? So there's really an important element to it, and that's part of our philosophy at Wastelinq is making sure we're doing something to really help protect the environment and the things that we really appreciate in our day-to-day life.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like you guys have really made strides with the company.
Yeah. So it was kind of an interesting beginning because we were in the waste business as a service provider for a number of years. A company called Effective Environmental, and we had written our own operating system for our software to help run the business because it's such a niche industry that there really wasn't anything off the shelf that you can buy. It's also very highly technical and it's very complicated in the industry as a whole. So we wrote the software there. We sold that business. We kept the rights to the software through that transaction. And then we started getting phone calls from former competitors and employees and customers asking if they could license the software. So
Okay.
we started out really as a bunch of waste people that learned how to become a software company. And it's interesting over the past 7 years how much the company's changed in terms of who we are and what we're doing. So we're
Yeah.
straight technology software company, really enjoying it, trying to the three things that we're trying to do are make our industry simple, connected, and transparent. Things that it hadn't been in the past,
Mm-hmm.
right? So a lot of duplicate effort, a lot of unnecessary steps, and just really trying to help streamline all those efforts.
Yeah, that's awesome. And to have the experience, like you said, you guys weren't a software company. That's what you became over time because of the experience that you'd had in the industry. So being able to bring that knowledge and create something that you knew was going to be valuable, it was valuable for your team. But to be able to provide that and see it grow, it's like it's working. And so to really have that crisp presentation, like you said, simple, connected, transparent, that's really just getting everybody dialed in to where it's easier to use and understand and to implement in their operation.
Yeah, I think one of the things we hear a lot from our customers is that they really appreciate that we were in the industry and
Mm-hmm.
understand what the problems are and the pain and the difficulty in certain situations, and so we're really dialed into the solutions that can really help alleviate a lot of those issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And being able to be a solutions provider, it's like it just gives you a lot of momentum with the team to be able to continue to refine and deliver and know that, like you said, you're making that environmental impact.
Yeah, yeah. There's things we've developed over the last 7 years that are in the application today that weren't in the software when we were using it ourselves when we were in the industry that I'm constantly saying, oh man, I wish I had that. I wish I had
Mm-hmm.
that. Right. So it's a lot of fun to help a lot of these, whether they're generators or service providers, transporters, brokers, disposal facilities, really help streamline a lot of what they're doing.
So there's a lot of different operations that can benefit from the software.
Yeah. So we have three primary target markets. There's in our industry, you have the generators of the waste, like manufacturing facilities, service companies. You have service providers that help a lot of those generators manage the waste on site, off site, and in transit, and then the disposal facilities. And so we've got solutions that are tailored for each of those three target markets in our
Mm-hmm.
industry.
Yeah, because they're going to have totally different needs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we grew up as a service provider, so that's kind of where we started. So for the waste brokers and service companies, transporters, it's really like an operational ERP software to help
Mm-hmm.
them run the business from setting up customers to getting profiles created and approved to routing their waste to managing their paperwork, scheduling their trucks, invoicing their customers front to end.
Mm-hmm.
We made a couple acquisitions along the way of other softwares, one called EnviroWare and one called TerraLink. And the EnviroWare piece had just as long a history, about another 25 years of working directly with the major disposal facilities. So that is now integrated with Wastelinq. And so we've really rounded out our service offering to the disposal sites. And for about the past year, year and a half, we've been really focused on the generator space, helping the really large generators that are typically working directly with the disposal sites, help them with really a waste procurement management system. So they're able to understand more about what they're actually paying for these services, right? Have
Mm-hmm.
visibility into their waste inventory, which is really important. Have visibility into multiple facilities. I keep hitting the microphone. Multiple facilities. So it's a lot more transparency, right? That's that transparency with your inventory, with where you're going with your waste, and just you own the data. So it's just that's the fastest growing piece of where we are today. Is that we call them super generators because they're typically really large facilities that have people on staff that are typically doing the work directly with the disposal sites.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just to cut down on all that time and guesswork, I imagine
Mm-hmm.
it's just the efficiency of it, and in being able to like see your data in such a like a clean presentation, and it's so accurate.
Yeah, it's the time savings has been huge. So we developed waste profiles are kind of the bane of the industry, right? I mean, they're super important. They have all the information, but a lot of the problems and difficulties have to come from the profile, right? So that waste profile touches everything, whether it's the shipping documents, how you handle, how you package, everything. And so it's often really difficult to create the profile. All the different disposal facilities have it's kind of like a resume about the waste stream, like
Okay.
what's in it, what are the hazards, what you need to do with it, and the disposal facilities each have their own version of a profile, right? There's hundreds and hundreds of disposal facilities across the country, and they all have a different version, right? Because their permits require different questions to be answered for a portion of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've actually built an AI tool called Profile Assist, where you answer 4 questions instead of 100 or 120, and it automatically creates a profile by looking at using a neural net to look at a database of hundreds of thousands of profiles to recommend like candidate profile answers, and then the user can edit it. So in terms of the time savings, it's gone from, it's 80% less time to create the profile, right? Then there's also, as part of that tool, it's going to recommend treatment methods based on that same data set. So you can pick a treatment method, and then it's going to recommend which of your approved vendors to use for that. And so
Oh,
it's
okay.
really helped streamline that effort and
Mm-hmm.
minimize cost, minimize time. And it's actually helping improve approval turnaround time on profiles, right? So for generators, cost is important, but also the timely nature of getting rid of it because there's rules around how long you can hold waste.
Mm-hmm.
So they appreciate faster turnaround profile times. Sometimes the cost is just as important as how quickly it can be managed.
Mm-hmm.
And so our profile assist has cut profile approvals by about 40%. It's 40% faster, which is huge. It's
Wow.
like from 11 days down to about 6.5, 7 days. So it's really streamlined that aspect of the industry.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that, like, I can see the appeal where it would be helpful for a customer to, it's like, see the value in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the value proposition is very strong across the board, right? So what we see with our service providers and disposal facilities is typically they would manage this with more people, right? So the technology can do what the people can do with about 1/7 of the cost. And so it's really efficient. The data is consistent, right? The effort is more streamlined, and so companies can get more done with the same number of people.
Yeah, and just really reducing your carbon footprint in multiple ways.
Yeah, so there are some features in Profile Assist that look at that, right? So we're building out a tool that will actually take a look at ESG scores for how you get rid of the waste. Right? It's going to look at the disposal method, how far you are from the facility, and really provide an ESG score onto making a selection of where you send your waste. So you can make selections based on cost, you can make selections based on proximity, timeliness, or even ESG scores. Those are some features we're building into it today.
That's awesome. And so again, that takes out the guesswork and like really brings the network together as far as
Mm-hmm.
the disposal facilities and like just the proximity of like where everything is located and knowing what's out there. It's like you don't have to constantly reinvent the wheel or make those decisions. It's helping
Right.
the process.
I'm glad you chose the word network, right? So that's the connected part of what we do,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you have generators and disposal facilities and service providers that are using our software. They're all on different environments of the same platform, but through our network, we're able to connect those companies together, right? Either through API connectivity, through AI tools that will help automatically complete documents
Mm-hmm.
and share information, or just through connectivity from environment to environment. So typically what would happen in the past is a generator would create a profile, or the service provider would create the profile for them, right? They would then submit it to the disposal facility. The disposal facility would then have to enter it into their system.
Okay.
So there's like the same information is entered 4 or 5 times through the process. Now you can create one profile and send it to your service provider, and they can send it to the disposal site just from one time entering the
Nice.
information.
Well, and then you don't have all the opportunity for human error or for things to change or get dropped.
Right, and mistakes on a profile can lead to regulatory issues. Right, you leave off an EPA code, you leave off some important information.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the information on a profile is important too because it's related to employee safety. Right, so you want to make sure that
Oh,
those
yeah.
disposal facilities that are receiving materials, the materials packaged right, you know what's in it. When they're
Mm-hmm.
handling it, they know exactly what's in it. So it really helps in that regard as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, that's just taking it to another level as well. You know,
Hmm.
thinking about personnel and the awareness and understanding of what the materials are, and
Hmm.
then plus that clean system delivering the information. So there's a lot of value baked into the software beyond the obvious that you want to keep up with your waste management and like the materials that you have, but also being able to grow your network and be connected like that.
Yeah, we're not really changing anything about how the industry works in terms of the process and the workflow. We're just really trying to automate the whole thing.
Exactly.
Right? So just help people make better decisions, more informed decisions with using more data and help streamline that process.
Mm-hmm.
So the typical workflows, the typical customer vendor relationships are all there. We're just giving you more efficient access to all your data to help you make better decisions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. And as it's grown, I think you mentioned you guys are pretty much all over the country, and you've expanded a little bit.
Yes, we have customers in all 50 states. 48 contiguous states, right, in the U.S. I don't believe we have anybody working with it in Hawaii and Alaska at this point. We do have customers in Mexico and Canada, and we have people using our application in Europe. Customers logging into a customer portal. So we're getting more and more. Recently, the big development question is how hard is it going to be for us to put this software in Spanish and in French and use the metric system or different currencies, and so we're getting a lot of worldwide opportunities now. Those are really just beginning. So
Yeah, that's exciting, and probably something that you hadn't thought of, years ago, like what that transition's going to be like. But being able to kind of see that coming into fruition and the need for it has to be exciting.
yeah, we kind of thought of it. Well, if we ever get to that bridge, we'll cross it when we get
Right.
there, right?
Yeah.
And we're
And now
facing it
you're
now.
here.
Yeah, so it's fun.
Yeah, that is really exciting, and to be expanding all over the world. Like obviously, it's working, and
Mm-hmm.
it's useful, but being able to really build the name and the brand and put yourself out there and let more people know about what you do. And like you said, you're not changing anything. You're just making it more efficient and easier for the whole process.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of streamlining the efforts, bringing technology, I think the one thing we are changing is the industry has been technology averse, right? It's pretty far behind in a lot of ways. It wasn't until 2018 that the EPA actually required electronic documents,
Oh, well,
and
that's really
still
not that long ago.
no, and still only a portion of the industry is using it. So when that with the promulgation of the e-manifest rules and some of the advances that we've made in our software and just getting more visibility in the market, we're starting to see that change, right? We're also seeing the industry change a little bit in terms of the demographics of who's making the decisions. It's younger people that are more, comfortable
Okay.
with
Yeah.
technology,
Mm-hmm.
and so that helps as well. So
Yeah.
the industry is really starting to the uptake is really starting to gain some momentum. Whereas when we first started 7 years ago, Manila folders, sticky notes, spreadsheets,
Yeah.
that those were our competitors.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, and a lot of people, it's like you just don't want to change. You don't want to learn something new. But with the new generation coming up, they're already, they've been exposed to technology. It's not something new.
Right.
And so it's a lot easier transition than someone that's been doing, sticky notes and
Yeah.
legal pads for 30 years. It's really it's an integrating era, I think, that we're in, where it's like technology is, it's not just taking over, it's just making the work so much easier
Mhm.
and accurate. And I mean that you can't, there's nothing that we can do to make that more efficient when it comes to what technology is capable of doing, but what we can do to use it to our advantage.
Yeah, I mean, one of probably our biggest competitor is the status quo, right? So we go in somewhere and the person there is used to their spreadsheet that they've built to do something, right? And those work, right? But they're not nearly as efficient. You can't share those across multiple
Yeah.
platforms, or it's more difficult to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing that change some, right? So change management is a big part of the journey when we sign on new customers, is making sure that we are understanding that it's, yeah, your processes worked before, there's some more efficient ways to do things. And so we just we have a whole team that guides people along through that process
Mm-hmm.
to help them get better
Yeah.
and get the most out of the software.
Right. And I bet that that is a selling point in something that, when people are considering to use a new software or to try out a new system, to have that guidance and support to make the transition.
Yeah,
That's huge.
yeah. I mean, because there's a lot of support that comes along with it, and it's needed, right? You want to make sure that customers are getting the support that they need so they can use the most out of the software, get the most out of it, and then continue to renew and grow within their business.
Mm-hmm.
So we see really high customer retention rates. We rarely see churn of customers, customers that don't renew. Typically, what we'll see is customers will start small, and then they'll just, as they get used to it and get familiar with it, they'll expand it out to the rest of the business and just
Okay.
continually grow. So um, we're really happy with their retention and upsell opportunities that we have with clients. So it's
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
a couple ways for us to grow and help the customer with the experience, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
not like you got to dive into the deep end right away,
Right.
right? So there's multiple ways to approach it.
Yeah. Have you had a lot of client success stories of like how it's changed their business, or where they've just like really like been able to tap into more, uh, I guess, organization and,
Mm-hmm.
understanding like what their waste management profiles look like?
Yeah, so there's probably a good story for each of the target markets, right? So one of our larger generator clients, they came to us before they were using our software, and they didn't have visibility into what they were doing at multiple locations across the country, right? So each facility had its own person, or a person was over a couple, two, three facilities, right? And they had their own version of how they were managing it, right? So they didn't have visibility into what was going on everywhere.
Hmm.
Or to put it all together was really difficult and time consuming. And so when they went out for bid, the information was incomplete, right? And so it was really difficult for them to actually get good pricing from their vendor or optimize their pricing from their vendor because the data wasn't all in one place for them to access.
Right.
So the Wastelinq tool was able to put multiple facilities on the same in the same platform where they're tracking their waste, they're understanding their costs, they see all their shipment history, and they went out for an RFI and they saved something like 15% over what they were paying the year before, which is a substantial amount. I
Yeah.
mean, it was multiples more than what the software cost, right? So it gave them that visibility to go out and find that savings.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really interesting, and that was really cool to hear that story because they
Yeah.
had that visibility, and it also gave them all the data in a single platform. So when they do their reporting, right, for the regulatory agencies and all the consultants that they're working with to get the data, it's there in one spot,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it really streamlined their reporting efforts as well. For the disposal facilities, so they often lack invisibility into their inventory, right? And so when they're planning inventory, when they're planning what they're going to process through their plant, whether it's a fuel blender or incinerator or whatever, most of the time they don't get a lot of lead time on what's coming in, right? So they'll have a few days, maybe a week's advance notice of what's coming in, and then they got to work out their processing plan from that. So with the Wastelinq enterprise application and the customer portal or connectivity to other vendors, they can see 90 days in advance of what's going on, so they can be much more proactive
Oh
about
yeah.
inventory planning.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've had generators or disposal facilities, instead of, if they're trying to, say, for example, neutralize sodium hydroxide, a caustic, to remove an EPA code D002, they'd go out and buy acid, purchase acid. Well, they were able to pull in an acidic waste stream that they knew was out there to bring those in at the same
Oh,
time and treat
interesting.
it
Okay.
using that.
Yeah.
So that was a cool story from the disposal facility side. And
Mm-hmm.
then the
Very
service
cool.
providers. So we had a service provider that was, they were doing around 12 million in revenue, and they had 5 people that were managing all the transactions administratively for that 12 million in revenue, right?
Mm.
After 3 years, they had grown to 48 million in revenue and only had to add 3 more people because the efficiencies of the software, right? So they grew what, 400%, and then only grew their staff 60%. So a lot more revenue per employee,
Mm-hmm.
which falls to the bottom line.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Absolutely. No, those are great examples of. I mean, just like really in action, especially like you said about the bringing in the acid,
hmm
where it's not like you have to go out and purchase it. Like you already know that that's going to be coming in, so you can use the two
yeah.
to cancel it out. That would be great for operations to be able to plan that strategically in
hmm
advance to be prepared for it.
Yeah, it's the analogy I use is like, if you ran a restaurant and you knew what exactly all your customers were going to order that day, you'd know exactly what you needed in inventory to produce all those plates of food, right?
Yeah,
So I imagine that's a really difficult challenge in the
of
restaurants. I don't know anything
course.
about the restaurant
Hmm.
industry, but just having a lot more information to help you plan with much more advanced time is really helpful.
Hmm. Well, and I can imagine being in the waste industry too, because you don't always know what you're going to come across. You don't know what's going to be coming in, or what, like really what's going to show up. So being able to be as prepared as you can on the back end
hmm
is going to allow you to be able to, like, again, just stay organized and have clear communication, but be set up to grow and expand, and not be just trying to, like, get the data from all your different locations together. It's
Right.
like you're able to kind of, like you said, you're streamlining, and you have a better understanding of your own operation.
Yeah, just more visibility, transparency into what's going on with your data in real time at multiple facilities, whether you're a generator, a disposal site, or service provider. Any of that just makes your business more efficient.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any regions in the country or different areas where you find that, like, it's more helpful, or it's more prominent, more widely used, or is it just like pretty much just all over?
It's a nationwide deal, right? I mean, we started in Texas with our company Effective Environmental, where the software was made, so our early customers were here. But we've expanded where we have customers across the country, right? So you have large pockets in this region. The Gulf Coast region produces 70% of the hazardous waste
Oh,
that's
interesting.
generated in the U.S.
Okay.
But there's also big markets out on the West Coast, in the Midwest, and the Chicago Great Lakes area, and also on the East Coast as well.
Just getting a better understanding of the types of waste. Are there within those regions, or like, do you does your customer base, does it really depend on the type of waste, or like what part of the industry that they're in? Because again, it goes back to, it's all tailored to each individual customer.
hmm
Like they can use it in different ways, but is that where like knowing what their needs are, is that kind of how, like, you can approach a new customer, like understanding? Because if the regions, like you said, the 70% of the waste in the country is in the, did you say southeast,
This Gulf
or
Coast
the
region,
Gulf
yeah,
Coast rather?
yeah.
So, and what type of waste is that?
It's all kinds, right? So industrial hazardous waste from like refineries, chemical plants, other types of manufacturing facilities. But the application itself can support any type of waste, right? So if it's hazardous waste, non-hazardous, recyclable materials, universal waste, all the different characterizations and classifications of the wastes it can handle. And the workflow is the same, right? So whether you're on the West Coast or East Coast or South, North, the waste streams generated are it's anything that's regulated by EPA essentially, and state regulated wastes is what the software is going to accommodate.
Okay. Well, so I mean, it's just like so valuable in multiple ways. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
just you know where your markets are, where
Mm-hmm.
they're obviously going to be having more of their waste management locations, the different regions that it's in. And so, do you travel to these different locations, or like what how have you built the software as far as like your customer base?
So we travel a lot, right? We're constantly going to different customers across the country. Our industry is pretty insular in that people will move companies but stay in the industry. So it's fortunate for us if someone leaves one company and goes to another, they'll
Oh
bring
yeah.
our solution in there. But we also have the benefit that if you're participating in this industry, you have to register with the EPA, right? So we know where everybody is, and so we can reach out to them and work with them that way.
Hmm.
But it's just it's sometimes it's hard to keep up with the amount of opportunity out there in terms of scale to get things going. But
Right.
we it's been a lot of travel, a lot of fun. We go to a ton of facilities. I mean, our software in it today supports. I think we have 700 disposal sites that are in the software, whether they're using our system or not. There's over 300 service providers that are using our software today, and then the generator space is growing quickly. So I think we're up to like 30 or 40 generators that are really moving that direction.
Wow. That's yeah. That's definitely scaling.
And that's like companies, not facilities or users. I mean, those numbers really expand from there.
On a macro level, how do you think the software has impacted the industry from being able to be so efficient and connected?
So we're estimating that about a $500 million worth of waste transactions are flowing through our software today. So based on our customer base and volumes are going through, we obviously don't know their cost or price, but we can estimate based on what we think the industry standards are. We've been told that we're an industry standard. I think that's kind of early to say that, right? So it's nice to hear,
That's
but we
great
still
to
got a
hear.
lot to
Yeah.
do.
You can grow into it a little bit, but own it.
Yeah, one of the coolest things we saw about 2 years ago was someone called one of our customers called and they had received a resume from somebody, and on their skills they put Wastelinq.
Oh, very
So
cool.
that was kind of neat to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
and
That's
now that seems to be fairly regular now.
okay. So, like, yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that, but I guess, like, obviously your employees know the software and know how to use it. And so to be able to put that on a resume, that speaks volumes.
Yeah, yeah. So that's been great, and we had a project that we ended up winning. A development project that we won for a customer, and we were up against one of the major software companies in the industry, like not even a waste company, but one of like the Magnificent Seven software
Oh,
companies on the
okay.
development side. And we actually won it because of our waste knowledge. So we didn't think we would be competing at that level
Mm-hmm.
anywhere, but it was kind of neat to see that and have won the opportunity. But that's back to we've walked in their shoes, we speak their language, we know their
Exactly.
business, and so it's really
Mm-hmm.
helped us that way.
It just makes such a huge difference when you've had the experience, when you've done it yourself. And so it's like you can not just speak the language, but you know what the needs are.
Well, you feel the pain and frustration. You felt it, right?
Yeah.
It's not an easy
Yeah,
business.
it can't be.
It's not an easy business. So many things can go wrong, right? And there's so many, you got different regulatory agencies all involved as needed, as should be, right?
Mm-hmm.
EPA, DOT, OSHA, all the state agencies. And so there's a lot of eyes on what you're doing. And so to be able to demonstrate you're doing what you're supposed to be doing is really important.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, taking out the guesswork and, that liability of the uncertainty. It's like knowing that you're in compliance, knowing that, everything is accounted for. I'm sure that the value prop of that, of just knowing that you're able to access your information so easily and know
Yep.
what you have.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's like some customers, when we were at Effective Environmental, we got a records request from the EPA. And and they were touring our facility at the same time, auditing our facility. And by the end of the audit, we gave them the data on a zip drive, right? And they were like, okay, wow, we normally get this in 2 months, but just having access to it to query the system to pull it down,
Yeah.
it can pull that out.
Yeah.
And now today it would be even faster because we're working on an AI chatbot reporting tool where you can say, show me all the generators that ship this type of material in the month of August to this facility, and it populates the data.
Oh, interesting.
So it goes and reads all the system data, everything. We use our own internal data. We use, public facing data sources that are publicly available. So, but we actually don't share any of our data internally outside of the system. So we don't sell it. We don't keep it. We're very, very particular about that. It's because our customers are too, right? And so that's all held very closely and not used anything other way than to service our customer.
Mm-hmm. That would be interesting insight for you to have, seeing the trends and knowing kind of what's happening, or being able to see what's going on and have that information for yourself.
Yeah. I mean, so today we're at a point where you have visibility into what you've generated, right? What's gone on in the past, what you have today. We don't think we're that far off. I don't know if it's a year, 2 years, or 3 years, but being able to do predictive analytics around what's going to be generated where and when, right? Looking at history, looking at manufacturing, different areas, looking at trends in the industry. If you see different materials have higher demand, it's going to produce more waste. And so we feel like that's something that we have on what we call our future roadmap to develop, just to give even more information about what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, kind of going back to that story you said about the customer that was able to be prepared, knowing that they needed the acid, they had the acid load coming in. And so whenever you're able to kind of predict and get set up in an industry that's very unpredictable, but if you can see the trends, or a little bit of what you can anticipate, it's going to make everything a lot, like reducing the carbon footprint and being able to get clearer communication and the network growing as far as like being able to move the waste the most efficient, cost effective, and then having everything right there readily available. And that's just going to continue to enhance itself as you go along. And like you said, the future roadmap, it seems like there's a lot of room to grow, but it's already so established.
Yeah, and one of the things I think that's a differentiator for us is that we are attempting to catalog any type of routing sequence in the industry. And for us, what a routing sequence is, it's a waste type, it's a disposal method, it's a disposal facility, it's how they treat it and process it, and it's the cost basis and price basis, right? And so we've cataloged I think we're over 2 million routing sequences, potential routing sequences based on container type and container size as well, and then we bring those down to what we call, it's a waste product code, right? And so that's really kind of the decoder key. So when we're going through and you say, I want something to go for fuel blending, that decoder key or that waste product code is going to show you all the facilities that could take that within your region, or that we make sense, and then make recommendations on however you want to set the parameters. And so that's a core function to everything we're doing, is that cataloged waste industry thing, to kind of try to standardize what's going on, because every disposal site calls it something a little bit different. And so we're helping generators and service providers and even the disposal sites understand more about what those differences are.
Yeah, I could see where that, like, again, with it making it more connected, it's like a little bit more unified, to where the conversation is the same. You're not having multiple languages on talking about basically the same thing. It's just like worded a little bit different, but kind of having it a little bit more streamlined, then there's just better understanding and better transparency.
Absolutely. Yep.
Well, that's really exciting, just learning a little bit more about how the software works, and where you guys are, and how Wastelinq has grown, and the services that it provides are just like really not just endless, but so customer specific, and the way that it's tailored and broken down. There's so much value to it.
Yeah, we really we talk to our customers a lot about what do they need, right? They can submit requests for enhancements to the software. We don't charge them for those enhancements to the software. If it's an enhancement that makes the overall experience for all of our customers better, we add it to our roadmap and we build it in.
Yeah.
But we continuously work with customers to develop solutions that are, specific to this industry, that are needed. So we do really focus a lot on staying in touch with what the new pain points are, or some some different information that may not we didn't have back in the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
An example of that is the EPA has recently required every generator to register with eManifest, which is the RCRA info database of where all the hazardous waste generators are, what they ship, all that kind of information, right? Um, and so their way that they're trying to make sure that the generators actually register, because there's 400,000 hazardous waste generators in the United States, and included in that list are just a dry, something as small as a dry cleaner down the road
Okay.
to a big chemical plant, right? And so um, one thing generators are required to do is keep copies of their final manifest copies, right? So to demonstrate that everything they've shipped out has been received and within a certain amount of time. And so registering for eManifest, you can access your manifests there, right? But you still want those on your own record on site somewhere where you can access it easily.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're building today is another tool that will, when you have a manifest show up in RCRA Info or eManifest, it's going to find it and automatically download it to your software. So you don't have to go find it and go get it. It's going to find it for you and bring it in.
Wow, yeah, that's awesome too, and that's going to make a huge difference.
Yeah, but that was a relatively new rule that went into enforcement, and it
Mm-hmm.
created a new pain point, particularly for smaller generators. And so we've introduced just last week a free version of software for these really small generators to kind of get them started.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a paid version that's a little bit of money per month. It's very inexpensive, but it helps them stay in compliance.
Okay.
So, and that's will help them pull that information back um, to grab their manifest, to do inspections, to do a lot of things around just their waste compliance programs.
Mm-hmm. And so when someone wants to try out the software, learn more about it, what are the action steps for them? How do they get in touch with Wastelinq?
So through our website, you can schedule a demo, right, with one of our sales engineers, and then we'll learn a little bit about what your needs are, whether you're a generator or service provider or disposal site, so they can find an open slot time that's available for a demo, or they can just reach out to us and ask questions and call. But we walk through, try to get an understanding of what they're doing, what their needs are, and then we actually tailor a demo specific to what they need. And we'll do, we typically do 3, 4 demos for every client before they sign up. Some of the larger clients, some more, some of the smaller clients, less.
Mm-hmm.
But we, walk through the software. It's, right out of the box, show them what it's going to do for them right away so that they understand what its capabilities are. And so we have a very good response to the demos. If we can get a demo, then we're closing the client typically 50% of the time. And so it continues to prove its value for the market. But sign up for the demo on the website. Our team will get in contact with you, and they'll walk you through and learn more about what you're doing first, because we want to make sure we're demoing features of the software that are important to you,
Mm-hmm.
but we'll tailor the demos to their needs.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and they can just like have that full personal experience for like what it's going to do for them.
Correct.
It's
Yeah.
not a one size fits all.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's some base features, and then there's other modules that you can purchase in addition to the base features to give you more functionality if you need it.
Mm-hmm. Are there certain markets that you're getting into or that you're exploring now, or kind of wanting a little bit more of a presence with?
The big focus for us now is, I mean, obviously we're doing very well with the service providers and disposal sites. The really large generators is who we're really targeting now, right? So today they have limited resources to manage all the responsibilities that an EH&S person has to do, right? They wear tons of hats. And so the ability to use our software to leverage save all that time savings and connect with your vendors and work closely and streamline it, there's a ton of value there for those EH&S folks that are safety people and environmental people and dealing with air, waste, and water and all the reporting things that have to go on. So we're working with them closely to really understand what some of those pain points are for them, and we're building out some additional features in there specifically for generators. But that's the primary. I mean, all three are important to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest market when you look at it are the really large generators. There's 400,000 hazardous waste generators in the United States. There's about 10,000 service providers and maybe 2,000 disposal sites. And so that's the natural progression. That's the biggest segment of the market that we're really focused on.
Right. Wow. It just like seems like the growth and expansion is just limitless for Wastelinq.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I
it
hope so. I
seems
mean,
like.
part of the connected, right? If we have, we're really focused on the generators as well to help support our existing service providers and disposal sites, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
as I mentioned before, we can have one Wastelinq enterprise platform talk to another here
Mm-hmm.
coming in the near future. So that would allow for generators to work directly with our service providers that are on our platform much easier than someone who's not. So that's an initiative to help our customers today who are service providers and disposal facilities connect directly with their customers
Yeah.
and give them kind of an easy button.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's exciting, and I've really enjoyed learning about it
Mm-hmm.
and having you come on today and share the journey of Wastelinq.
Sure. Appreciate the time.
Yeah. Well, and thank you, and look forward to seeing the growth and what else you guys do in the on the future roadmap.
Sounds great.
Okay. Thanks again, Sean, and thank you everyone for watching Power of the Permian. We'll see you next time.